Hello friends, today we'll be discussing Lightlbade by Zamil Akhtar. So before we get into the review, I always think it's necessary to mention that I'm weird about spoilers. So whenever I do a review or let's talk about video, I always try to leave it as spoiler free as possible. I like to go into books blind, not knowing anything. So that's kind of how I approach these types of videos. So I'll try my best to not spoil anything. I will give you just a little bit of the plot, just the very, very tip of the iceberg for the plot. I'll give you my thoughts, what my takeaways were, and then you can decide if the book is for you or not for you. Lightlbade is classified as progressive fantasy on the website, on Zamil's website. So that gives you kind of an idea of what type of story it is. I wouldn't call it dark fantasy or grimdark necessarily. There are some darker themes, but I don't think it's quite on that level yet. I don't think it's quite on that darkness scale. The stuff I normally read, there is some darkness, but there's not that much darkness. It's not gunmetal gods, so it doesn't go that far. And the whole reason I'm really picky about receiving arcs from authors because I like to have them out in a reasonable amount of time. And sometimes it's hard to commit to a 500-page book and have the review out in time. But I've been a big fan of Zamil's after Gunmetal Gods. I've gotten to know him a little bit. So when he asked me if I would be interested, I couldn't say no. And it was only 500 pages. 500 pages used to be a lot. Now it's not so much. It does take me some time, but it's not as long as some other books I've been reading lately. So Lightlbade, if you enjoy going into books blind, not knowing anything, I would suggest not reading the synopsis, because I almost wish I didn't read the synopsis because it gave me some expectations for the book. Not that those expectations weren't met, but I like to go into books not knowing anything. So if you like to go into them blind, don't read the synopsis. Maybe watch this video and I'll give you just a little bit, but I won't give you as much as the synopsis does. So in this book, we meet Jayash. I may be pronouncing that name wrong. And he is in a labor camp, and he wants to kill the emperor. Now, in this world, there are stones. These stones do different things for you. There's dream stones. You can enter a dream, and in your dreams, you can have programs that, or like scripts, they're called, that train you how to do things or keep you company, or they're companions. In some cases, they're companions to keep you busy, to keep your mind occupied, to prevent you from going crazy. For instance, someone in a labor camp has a dreamstone. That dreamstone can have a companion in it that is geared towards what appeals to you. So it'll keep you company, it'll love you, it'll do everything you've always wanted someone to do for you without question. There's dreamstones. There's also other types of stones that do other things for you. So that's kind of the magic system here that's in play. There's a lot more than that, but that's kind of, like I said, the tip of the iceberg. So in this world, we meet Jayash. He wants to kill the emperor, and the story kind of goes from there. There's lots of twists and turns. I think it's an adventure also, with progressive fantasy adventure. I think it's safe to say that's an adventure type of book. You're going on a quest, and you meet people on the way, and it does feel like a journey by the time you get to the end. Now this book, I wasn't quite sure what to expect with it because, like I said, I was a big fan of Gunmetal Gods, and I love that series. So I wasn't sure how dark it was going to be. But in this one, like I said, it wasn't as dark. But my big takeaways, or what I would really compare this to, is, in my mind, is what I walked away with was Inception, Deus Machina, and maybe Star Wars and The Matrix. It was kind of a mix of all those different types of storytelling. Now in this book, I found myself questioning pretty often, because there's this magic system and because there's ways to manipulate this magic system. I found myself wondering, what's real? What's real? And there's some questions raised on whether, almost like with The Matrix, with the movies The Matrix, I'm going to spoil a 20-year-old movie, but if you have the option, so if you know that you're living in a simulation, you know that you're living in a world that is geared towards just making you happy. It's geared towards keeping you happy and pleased and content. And if you know that that's not really the real world, do you choose to leave, or do you want to stay there? Do you choose to be free and to make your own decisions, to have free will? Or do you choose to be a pawn in that system and stay there where you're happy, and you'll probably die happy and content, but you're not free. You're being manipulated the whole time. So there's questions like that that are raised of what's real, what's not, and those are. I'm trying to be really careful here, not to give anything away, but those are my big takeaways. Where, what's real, what's not, is like with AI or with simulations. Are those simulations real? Are we real to them, or what are we to these AIs? These AIs that gain self-awareness. What are we to them? Can you see things from both sides, and you start to wonder yourself, would I want to stay somewhere where I knew it wasn't real, but I was happy, but something kept me happy, kept me busy? Or do I want to live in the real world where I might be in a labor camp all day long, or I might be in a prison, or I might be a slave, or I might be whatever your life is? You start to wonder which option would you pick? Where would you end up going? What would you decide? But I did enjoy the magic system. The characters there's some pretty funny banter back and forth with some of the characters. There's some surprises that I did not expect to happen. And like I said, it does raise questions, but it's very subtle. It's very, the way that it raises questions in the book throughout the story is very subtle. Overall, if you want a book with an adventure, a fantasy adventure, it's not too dark. It's not very, there are some violent portions of it, but it's not as violent as stuff that I normally read. So it is accessible. It's not too, doesn't veer too far off, but it is an adventure that'll leave you thinking. And that's the kind of book, that's the kind of storytelling I like to enjoy the most, is the ones that'll leave you thinking, that'll keep you questioning what would you do, or keep you thinking about it long after you finish the book. And I finished the book last night, and I'm still asking myself these questions, what I would do. So very well done. It is book 1 in a series, I believe. I'm not sure how many books the series will be, but I'm curious to see what Zamil does next. I think has a lot of potential. So this book is available for sale on June 1st, 2022. So if what I described sounds interesting to you, it is available for pre-order now, or if you're watching this after June 1st, it is available for purchase on Amazon or on Zamil's website. Have you read Lightlbade? If you have, let me know down below what you thought of it. As always, I hope this review was helpful. I will talk to you soon.